Hello, and welcome to CGIS 810 Transnational Organized Crime. I'm Carl Peterson, and this presentation will be based on the Transnational Organized Crime Terrorism Nexus. Criminal offending and types of crimes have long been explored to understand why individuals choose to commit acts of crimes. Many hypotheses and theories have been developed as tools to answer these questions. As a leading nation, the United States is at the forefront of technology, all while also serving the world as a superpower. Today's discussion will focus on the United States of America and the Transnational Organized Crime Terrorism Nexus. First, an introduction to the United States will be developed to understand a little bit on our background. Secondly, transnational organized crime will be identified, then investigate the definition of terrorism to understand the nexus between transnational organized crimes and terrorism. Within this exploration of transnational organized crimes and terrorism, we will specifically target cybercrime and cyberterrorism as the world seems to be gaining a stronger foothold through technological advances. Transnational organized crime, terrorism, and cybercrime, cyberterrorism have an impact upon the world and upon the United States Homeland Security, and the impact these crimes have upon both is particularly known as valuable knowledge. The discussion will then turn to what the U.S. and global society can do to mitigate or reduce this phenomenon through the creation of policies or procedures. Finally, a Holy Bible analysis will be sought to understand how God wants His children to address and confront the issues at hand. The United States of America began when the colonies decided to break away from their mother country, Britain, in 1776 as 13 original colonies. The U.S. was not recognized as a new nation until the Treaty of Paris in 1783. In the 19th and 20th centuries, 37 new states were added to the original 13, bringing us to a grand total of 50, while also acquiring several overseas possessions and territories to include Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the like. Two major traumatic experiences plagued the U.S. First, the Civil War. That was from 1861 to 1865, in which the northern states defeated the southern states, and is considered the nation's deadliest war. And two, the Great Depression of the 1930s, where economic downturn brought about a quarter of the country's labor force losing their jobs. World War I and World War II, 1914 to 1918, and 1939 to 1945 respectively, and the Cold War from 1947 to 1991 catapulted the U.S. as the world's most powerful nation-state with a growing economy, low unemployment, low inflation, and rapid advances in technology. The national security of the United States includes the branches of the military, which are the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and the Space Force, the Coast Guard, with a special note that the Coast Guard is, during times of peace, it falls under the Homeland Security. In times of war, they report to the Department of the Navy. Law enforcement agencies, both federal, state, local, special jurisdictions, and tribal police. Cybercrime. Technologies advancing throughout society have perforated culture in many ways, for both good and bad. Being a criminal justice class, one such way is through criminal endeavors known as cybercrime living within cyberspace. Cybercrime lives within the fifth domain of warfare known as cyberspace and gives rise to cybercrime, cyber warfare, and cyberterrorism. Cybercrimes are crimes committed through the internet network, and they're often seen as both fluid and global types of organized crime with strong local ties. The very technology of the internet has changed many rules of the game in the information era and the physical environments. All life processes today are digitized. and lie within the web, the internet, which requires safe mechanisms or security to conduct daily life within cyberspace. Daily processes include shopping, working from home, going to school from home, such as online classes, online banking, and etc., with most internet usages being associated with personal and financial information. In 2022 alone, 1.2 billion data breaches occurred, with many breaches being in the healthcare sector, which is of particular interest as most internet usages being associated with personal and financial information, and yet more breaches occur in the healthcare sector. With cybercrimes actively being gauged upon cybersecurity is a domain whose goals include the protection of critical infrastructure, personal and financial data from cyber attacks. Cyber targets have become more attractive and accessible, and hence cybersecurity represents the most significant threat today. Cyberterrorism has been applied to describe the use of the internet for terrorist purposes. Cyberterrorism is a special type of terrorism where the place or media used is in virtual space. Cyberterrorism is a crime involving the use of computer systems to carry out terrorist acts and is characterized by threats or destruction on a large scale, coupled with the intention to injure or pressure society or the government of a country. Terrorists committing cyberterrorism is typically through the spreading of propaganda. National law and international law does not yet regulate the spreading of propaganda, nor is it associated as a crime. Transnational organized crimes are borderless in nature, just as cyberspace, bringing about ample opportunities to many differing users. Motivated offenders, as well as law enforcement, have utilized the internet, which has globally connected everyone for illegal and legal use, causing damage or protection. Cybercrimes are not restricted by jurisdictional and geographical boundaries, and their associated organizational responsibilities, high-tech abilities, orchestration skills, and transnational crimes demand more resources to detect, search, investigate, and seize by law enforcement agencies. Due to the intricate design and demand for technological, knowledgeable individuals, cybercrimes can be achieved directly or indirectly through legal and/or legal transitions. Cyberterrorism crimes are considered to be organized transnational crimes because of their borderless nature. Just like cybercrimes involves more than one country, many different types of victims and the perpetrators of the crime can be from different countries, which can result in the differences in cybercriminal law enforcement. Cyberterrorism crimes. Cybercriminal law enforcement states to be a transnational crime, you must meet the following criteria. 1. Conducted in more than one country. 2. Conducted in one country, but an important part of the preparation. 3. Planning, direction, or control activities occur in another country. 4. It is carried out in one country, but involves an organized criminal group. 5. Involved in criminal activity in more than one country. And 6. Carried out in one country, but has major consequences in another. Terrorism. To connect transnational organized crime, cybercrime, and terrorism together, one must first understand terrorism, its meaning, and how to identify the term. However, this remains to be found, as there is no unanimously agreed upon, meaningful, universal definition of the act, and remains to be elusive. Although the term's definition is elusive and unfounded, the terrorist action is an action driven by political, religious, or ideological motives, carried out with the goal of instilling within the public fear or anxiety, or forcing another government from taking certain actions, or acts as threats to inflict severe harm. Harm is defined as an impact on a person's body or liberty, public security or health, property, including religious sites, burial places, and religious paraphernalia, or infrastructure, public systems, or essential services, or the state economy, or the environment. As one can see, there is no definition to terrorism. There are identifiable actions of terrorist groups, which include the infliction of harm upon individuals, upon groups, and upon governments, where the term harm has a definition. As the United States government began to formalize its approach to combating terrorism after the events of September 11, 2001, the U.S. Department of State began to issue its formal list of foreign terrorist organizations. With the majority of significant terrorist organizations targeting the State of Israel were targeted, in fact, by the State Department. That is, the State Department started labeling terrorist organizations that were targeting Israel with terrorist attacks. While some groups widely shunned as terrorist groups by the international community have managed to beat a well-worn path to negotiations, political legitimacy, and even sovereign power, the implication is terrorism labeled as such need not be permanent, as in the case of South Africa, where groups of men were quelled by Nelson Mandela. Cyberterrorism is a crime undertaken by persons who intend to advance social, religious, or political objectives by causing widespread fear or by damaging or disrupting important infrastructure, information. Global security. Terrorism has become a global phenomenon with strong ties to Israel and the Arab Muslim world, which is evident and can be seen today. Other ties to this phenomenon, being close to home, include the villainous 9/11 terrorist attacks in New York City. Linking terrorism with cyberspace, cyberterrorism is one crime considered to have a significant effect of damage if and when it befalls a country. Damages can include financial, physical, the infrastructure, military, their health care, and the like. Extremist organizations are using cyberspace more intensively and systematically and pioneer the deployment of cyberspace. ISIS first appeared in 2013 and is heavily involved in a new terrorism, where computers and the internet take an important role in terrorist activities. This new media of terrorism is capable of expanding ISIS activities through cyberspace, especially realizing the ISIS goal is not to cause death, but to create terror and insecurity in society. ISIS, and many other extremist groups, is a real threat to cyberspace because the extremist groups recruit many experienced hackers with the computational skills needed to hack into systems and destroy the target computers. The modus operandi used by extremist groups in committing cyberterrorism is to carry out cyber attacks in the form of hacking, propaganda, fraud to obtain funding, the distributed denial of services, also known as DDoS, these attacks, and malware attacks. Now, DDoS attacks, again, distributed denial of service attacks, are an overload attack launched online, bombarding the IP address with large amounts of data and overloads the home page so users are unable to utilize the networks. A malware attack is a soft code designed to infect, damage, change, destroy, delete, or replace data and information without the user's knowledge or consent. Machine learning-based methods have largely been unable to prevent damage due to fake reviews on key e-commerce platforms, and this presents serious risks to self-regulation of open markets. These markets are a cornerstone of a capitalist economy. All right, Homeland Security. Before September 11th, 2001, there was no term Homeland Security, nor was there a department for it. Since the villainous acts, the term has come to the forefront of America and has linked the term with terrorism, primarily those perpetrated by foreign actors. Homeland Security is focused on preventing terrorist attacks within the U.S. by reducing vulnerabilities and minimizing the damage, along with the ability to recover from attacks which do occur in their unlikely event. Homeland Security is an element of national security and works with other instruments of national power to protect the sovereignty, territory, domestic population, and critical infrastructure of the United States against all threats and aggression. Infrastructure systems within advanced governments are highly connected, meaning a natural attack from individuals can lead to cascading events. Natural or attack being a natural disaster or an attack from individuals can lead to cascading events, which can be even more hazardous than the original event. One of the biggest threats to the crime is the ever-expanding use of cybercrime, and the United States has produced a high concentration of leading cybercrime experts. Between 2020 and 2021, cyber attacks have become more common within national security systems. The Department of Homeland Security has launched a new era of national security, with modeling and analytics needed to address security issues, focusing on deterrence, interdiction, protection, and response across a wide range of society with the goal to protect the lives and assets by allocating resources to secure systems. The good news is joint actions across multiple agencies, which includes both federal and law enforcement, local police, have been identified as a key component for successfully defending Homeland Security and investigating cybercrime, cyberterrorists. Mitigating policies. Developing and creating potential policies and strategies to reduce cyberspace criminalization is a relatively new frontier. And the following information was gathered and compiled from several recent researchers within the field, recent being within the last 5 years. The abundance of data and social networks has provided opportunities for governments to model a reduced risk across time and use this knowledge to not only prevent attacks, but also to prevent adversarial groups from attracting others and advancing their plans and capabilities. No matter the strategies applied to fight cybercrime, the target should be the countries which produce the most cybercrime, and these countries should at least produce the most impactful tactics, meaning their fair share. With the discovery and possibility of cybercrime being driven by local factors, the mitigation or reduction of cybercrime may require a localized approach which considers differences and features of cybercrimes within the context of localities. Local governments and agencies need to develop their own strategies and their own capabilities to face the targeted threats from cyber-related activities to protect their own citizens and national interests, specifically in the domain of hate speech, propaganda, fake information, networks, and data security and critical infrastructures. Furthermore, local governments and agencies need to develop their capacity and capabilities to assist in the protection against cyber attacks in all forms. As the United States weighs more stringent counterterrorism policies, those adopted by various European governments have muddied the waters by trying to distinguish between the military actors and the politicians in terrorist groups like Hezbollah. New techniques should be the primary focus, with the development and implementation of technologies and strategies aimed at the formation of information and the protection of systems through the development of innovative technical managerial techniques. The improvement in cyber law enforcement capacity is a solid place to start by increasing legitimate job opportunities with access to youth programs for potential offenders, strengthening international agreements and law harmonization, developing more sophisticated and culturally specific social engineering countermeasures, or reducing corruption. Artificial intelligence has become a mainstay methodology in recent years. Traditional models such as number programming that are used to solve branch and bound algorithms can be classified within the AI footprint. Machine learning methods that employ neural networks offer more current artificial intelligence techniques, but many of the opportunities for advancing security resides in finding new ways to use AI or artificial intelligence to deter, detect, and recover from security attacks. The advantage offered by artificial intelligence is that it can transform large data sets into useful information. To bring cybercriminals to justice, effective law enforcement investigation requires sophisticated digital forensic skills with a clear understanding of how cybercrimes occur. However, the capacity to investigate or even detect specific cybercrimes like hacking varies widely across jurisdictions, which underscores the importance of collaboration among and between law enforcement agencies and between national and local authorities. Biblical analysis. Cyberspace is a growing field, a platform hosting a society within a global society, the society being cyberspace within a global society being the nations on Earth, where borders and boundaries are meaningless, because cyberspace is everywhere. Mankind's laws within nations only reflect the nation who creates and upholds those laws. The Lord's laws, however, transcends time and boundaries with no replacement. The Holy Bible tells Christians God's law is perfect, it's righteous, and provided to mankind not as a burden, but to expose sin. That's Romans 7:7-8. The Lord told Moses, if anyone sins, breaches, or deceives his or her neighbor to take money or to commit robbery, has committed wrong, and is required to repay what was taken, plus add an extra fifth. This is Leviticus 6:1-7. Here you can see breaching or deceiving his or her neighbor by taking money or committing robbery. These are all things that cybercrimes have done. Even cyberterrorists do the same thing to take money. The Lord's law is saying that once they are found out, they need to repay what was taken plus add an extra fifth, and that is also part of the punishment. Whatever the means of stealing money from people, the Lord counts sin as being guilty to all sins. It's James 2:10, with a promise of punishment. It's Revelations 21:8. Those who create a life based upon greed, corruption, theft, bribery, and the sort will they also reap. For those who create a life based upon sin, will they reap corruption. But those who sow from the Spirit will receive eternal life. That's Galatians 6:7-8. God's word is filled with examples, as we have seen, on committing sins and deceptions to increase one's way within the world. The Lord also promises vengeance to the wrongdoers by the governing authorities, as a vengeance for the weak and the innocent. This is Romans 13, 1 through 14, which also states that individuals need to pay attention and follow the laws of governing authorities. Here, cyber criminals, cyber terrorists, they do not follow the law, but they need to be wary of those who bring law to them, as they will be a vengeance for the weak and the innocent. In conclusion, today's discussion focused on the United States of America and the transnational organized crime, terrorism, nexus regarding cyberspace. First, an introduction to the United States was developed and understood. Secondly, transnational organized crime was identified and investigated with the definitions of terrorism and cybercrimes. The discussion then sought to understand the nexus between transnational organized crime, terrorism, and cybercrimes. Transnational organized crime, terrorism, and cybercrime, cyberterrorism have impacted the world as well as the U.S. Homeland Securities, and these impacts are not only valuable to understand, but necessary for governments to protect its citizenry. The discussion then turned to what the U.S. and the global society can do to mitigate or reduce this phenomena through policies, procedures, and strategies. Recapping some of those mitigating policies. Possible mitigating strategies here is the primary focus, as cyberspace is an ever-evolving world. These governments need to adapt policies and strategies based upon the types of cybercrimes being committed in their areas, but should also collaborate and work together to create a safe and secure cyberspace for all. Artificial intelligence is also an ever-changing world. No doubt, at some point, if it already has not happened, cybercriminals may choose to utilize this program for their advantage. In this case, it is highly important for law-abiding citizens to come up with a good use for artificial intelligence beforehand. Finally, a Holy Bible analysis on God's will was discovered to seek out and punish the wrongdoers as a vengeance for the weak and the innocent. Again, Romans 13. So thank you again for staying with me throughout the PowerPoint presentation. The following slides are actually the references that I utilized in this PowerPoint presentation. If you guys need to utilize them, here they are. I hope you all will find and enjoy this PowerPoint. Thank you so much.